Heat waves, floods, fires. 2020 hopefully marked the year where people started to pay attention to the planet and our ways of living. But while this happened, greenhouse gases continued to accumulate in the atmosphere. Sea levels kept on rising, and while food kept on coming to our tables, we weren't healthier and we still wasted too much. By 2030, the Norwegian Svalbard International Seed Vault that was meant to preserve biodiversity for the future of agriculture flooded. Noah's Ark didn't sail into the future. Past species dived to the bottom of the sea. And hope sank with it. By 2040, our capitalistic economies were still growing strong, and technology was seen as the only way to address the climate emergency. Meanwhile, synthetic food started to become popular, not by choice, but by necessity. By 2050, while some people were still bathing in the rewards of economic development, the other half started to suffer more and more. The climate refugee crisis was just beginning. By 2060, the world population reached its peak. 10 billion people. 10 billion people to feed. Soon after, the new coronavirus pandemic broke out. From there on, the ecological collapse was inevitable. By 2070, people finally decided to act, but it was too late. Over 80% of the lands were no longer farmable. The world's governments decided to urgently initiate a plan for outer space migration. Meanwhile, food shortages needed to be addressed. By 2084, cities were earmarked as the last bastions to save the human race. Melbourne, London, Shanghai, and Hokkaido were the lucky ones. Prototype cities for the Great Martian Migration. Citizens thought the future finally looked bright, but it was not the life they were expecting. Hello world, and welcome to Green Renaissance. In 2090, Neo-Shanghai, the last remaining human settlement in China. Artificial food is grown in magnetically levitating organic structures to avoid contamination from our toxic environment. Like a queen bee feeding royal jelly to its progeny before worker bees are tasked to harvest pollen and nectar for the rest of their lives. The city farm, controlled by an artificial intelligence, nurture the young before they're fit enough to work for the colony. Whilst undesirable, this fragile artificial system ensures the survival of the human race in a land made inhabitable by our own making.